I'm pleased to be introducing Daf Rees of Arena Television. This is a very exciting presentation for me because I think that outside broadcasts, due to their nature of constant movement, constant setup, constant teardown, are going to give us a wonderful place to really exploit the benefits of IP technology by having a very flexible system, having a flexible backbone. We're going to be able to do things much quicker, much more economically than we ever have before with other technologies. So I'm really looking forward to this presentation. So Daf, take it away.
Thank you very much. That's a build-up, isn't it? Let's hope that I can live up to to that. Hello, as Wes said, my name's Daf Rees. I'm the Deputy Director of Operations at Arena Television. Arena, we run a fleet of OB trucks out of the UK. We also, as a company, run a fleet of helicopters and charter business jets as well. So it's a company with expensive taste. A couple of years ago, we started building IP trucks, and we just launched our fourth one in the fleet this weekend, actually, OBZ. And just to give you a quick history of what we've done, the process for us began in 2014 after the IBC show in 2014, where there was a requirement from the business to start thinking about how to expand the existing OB fleet. The design brief was to build very large trucks capable of servicing our very biggest productions that we could, and to do that in UHD. Now, it was already clear that to do that with quad SDI would be an unelegant way of doing it and brought with it its own risks. So we started wondering, is there another way of doing it, which is where we started investigating IP. We spent the back end of 2014, all of 2015, painstakingly researching whether IP could be applied into our environment, and after many decision meetings, we decided to build OBX, which was the first IP truck, followed by OBY, followed by OB12, and this year our fourth IP truck, OBZ. So I thought I'd share with you some of the lessons that we've learnt over those last 4 years almost now, about how we made some decisions on that IP technology, and perhaps share some observations about how this whole space has developed over the last couple of years. To give you an idea of the scale of system that we're building, here's a picture of the truck. It's a large triple expand OB truck with large production space, large sound space. We still insist on calling it VT, even though we haven't seen a VT in the truck for many years. But nonetheless, the replay area for 12 or 14 operators, and a large vision area capable of shading 30-ish, 35 cameras. Here's some pictures of OBZ. And don't take my word for it, it's downstairs in Hall 9. We'd love to see you there. Please come and see us, have a look around, and we can answer any questions that you have about OBZ on the truck, and we can show you exactly what we've done and how to do it. So when we started looking at the design challenges of OBX, when we started the design in 2015, there were some real big issues that we had to consider, and to consider all of these things alongside the existing SDI infrastructure. The big problem in 2015 for us, or one of them, was just a lack of reference sites. Nobody had done this on the scale that we had, and we couldn't call some friends. We couldn't just go and see other people. So that was always fairly high on the risk register. Well, look, we've never seen this stuff actually working on the system of our scale. And with that, and combined with that, also this idea that many manufacturers didn't have enough equipment to be able to even build a plausible proof of concept system. There was so little hardware available in the market at that time. That was also one of the big challenges of the OBX design. We were fairly confident from the beginning that using light compression would be a good way of achieving a system that we wanted to do in an OB truck. But the difficulty we saw with that was we've seen the compression working, we've seen that visually it looks great. But what happens when you put that into the system? What happens when you do multi-generation things? Is there a latency problem, or does it add further complexity in the system? So that was another question that we just couldn't really answer in 2015 because of the lack of reference sites, because of the lack of a proof of concept. And of course, what about interoperability? There was we met with a number of vendors around that time, and to be quite blunt, there was quite a lot of grandstanding going on at the time. One vendor would say, well, you know, our stuff's the best, of course it is, but maybe if we will write some code to be able to work interoperably with another vendor. And guess what? You go and see another vendor and they tell you that their stuff was the best, and if eventually they write some code. So all of that was difficult because of course all this was pre-AIMS and pre-2110. Above all, I think there were the naysayers, the people in 2015 that said this stuff just isn't going to work. And here we have a naysayer, ladies and gentlemen. This just incidentally is just a stock photo, so if you see this guy out in the street, you know, don't ask him about IP stuff, he won't know. But you know, they were saying, what's wrong with SDI? There's this 12 gig SDI stuff coming that you could use that to replace the quad SDI environment. But of course, that in itself has a shelf life, because what we were missing was the flexibility, the signal agnosticity of IP. So that wasn't really an answer. And they'd say, well, nobody will be able to use it. None of the engineers will be able to use it. And that was a big thing that people were saying back in 2015. And you know, there's no future in IP. That was the other thing that these naysayers were telling us when we were going to the market and discussing this idea of building an IP infrastructure. Now, I think it's interesting that some of these naysayers are some of the vendors that are in these halls now, and a lot of those vendors told us at the time there's no future in IP. But now they're the very ones making the most of it. So, you know, things change. But of course, there wasn't just one naysayer, there wasn't just one voice at the time. They were popping up all over the place. You couldn't move for naysayers. But I think eventually we proved them wrong. We built OBX and we built OBY, both in the autumn of 2016. And they were the first to be built with a lot of the partners noted on the bottom there. There's been great collaboration between all the people involved in these projects all along, and that's it's one of the most heartwarming things of that project actually, is how well everybody collaborated to build these trucks. The two trucks, OBX and Y, are -6 based system because it was pre-2110. They used TECO. We used baseband AES in those units. All based around a Cisco Nexus 9508 switch driving the whole thing. So what were the key lessons that we learned directly after building OBX? I think the biggest thing was that a lot of people, as that naysayer was saying earlier, that people wouldn't be able to use it, and we couldn't retrain broadcast engineers to be IT engineers. The reality is that most of the skills you need in this new environment is still the fundamental broadcast building blocks. You still need to understand video, you still need to understand audio, you still need to understand about timing, about things being coincident. And really, the IP element is just a small part on top of that knowledge. So engineers are quick to pick up on that knowledge, and the other answer to those naysayers in the first place is actually never underestimate people's ability to change. There is a thirst to change, and so people need a little bit of structure to understand what does need to change, but actually that's not onerous, and it shouldn't put you off from investigating IP systems. The user experience in the trucks haven't changed. A lot of the control system is the same. We use VSM, as it happens, in the control system, as a control system. So what faces the operator in the trucks doesn't have to change. It can be still the router panels that they're used to, still the vision mixer panel that they're used to, and the environment is the same. And in some ways, that was exactly what we wanted to achieve. We wanted the operators to come into the trucks, the production personnel to come into the trucks, and be familiar, be happy with what they were using, and not really care whether the technology behind the scenes was IP, wet string, or whatever it is. That's not for them to worry about. But IP certainly means that you don't have to change the user experience. I say you don't have to because you can change the user experience. You can make things more flexible. You can change the way that the user does interact with the system, but you don't have to initially. You can feed that in over time. And I guess the biggest lesson from 2016 is that it worked. We built OBX, we built OBY. They went on, OBX went on to cover Premier League football matches. OBY, went on to cover rugby union matches. So they didn't get built and then go and do sort of small-scale background stuff. They went straight in to do very high-profile work, and they've been very successful on those jobs. So let's consider perhaps what's changed since 2016. I think that the biggest, one of the great things was to see how AIMS has developed. I think I'm right in saying that AIMS started off with just 5 members at the back end of 2015. And it's been great. I think it's up to 99 members now. And that really has satisfied that argument about interoperability and has taken that concern away. Things like the IP Showcase also have been great forums to show how IP systems can interoperate. I'm sure that's not the right word, but bear with. And to be able to see this stuff in action is really great, and obviously gives a lot of confidence that these IP systems are a good solution. There's far more successful installs, so that's done away with the question about reference sites. You can come to see our truck here on the show. You can play with it. You can see how it all works, and there's a growing number, as the board there says. There's a growing number of IP installations that allows you again to build confidence. There's been an increasing realization in the benefits of IP as well, as the presentation before was showing. It makes things like high frame rate cameras capable. It makes the whole process of actually building a system a lot easier, especially as auto discovery becomes more and more available. So how did all this impact on OBZ's design? Well, I guess the biggest thing was now that there's a whole greater portfolio of equipment to choose from, and that allows you to choose, make better choices about which tool to solve particular design challenges with. In OBX, for example, for the transmission path in OBX, there was a number of instances where we had to go from IP to SDI through gateways to do some processing, go back into IP, sometimes go back into SDI for some more processing before we could pass it off through the truck. Now in OBZ we're using Axon cards, Axon NUG cards that allow you to do all that processing on one card. So the system design has become much more elegant, become much more efficient, just because of the increased portfolio of products out in the market. With the confidence of having operated IP units for the last 2 years, it gives us more confidence in the design stage to be a little bit more, to be more adventurous perhaps with the way that we solve particular problems. In OBX, when we were designing, we had to be reasonably conservative and have choose from a much narrower selection of equipment. But now we know how the system works, we know how the signal flows work, so we can be a bit more elegant about it. We're improving the user interface all the time, although, as I said, we don't have to change the user interface. What we learn now is that there are plenty of opportunities to do that where that's available. So we can use software to give the information, to give the user a lot more information about what can be achieved within the system. I think this is quite interesting. The difference top trumps the difference between OBX and OBZ, and the difference between 2 years. The first point there is the number of native IP products in the truck. In OBX, there were really 4 native IP products. We had GV Node IP processing platform, GV IPGs as gateway products. GV cameras were native IP products, and WOLA for some IP audio monitoring. Now, only 2 years later, that roster of equipment is grown to 15 different pieces of equipment, all natively handling IP. So we've added those extra gateway cards that do for different tasks. We've chosen appropriate gateway cards for those tasks. The Vision Mixer is now natively IP, and a number of other products. We use a lot more AES67 now, so there's a number of products dealing with AES67, and it's good to see that list is growing, and it'll grow again, I'm sure, as we build new systems. Going back to that point about interoperability, we were cautious about that. So in OBX, we deliberately kept the number of different vendors with IP products to a minimum. That was to guarantee that interoperability, and where there might be difficulties, that you just got one company to deal with. And that was a very important point in that first build, that without any POCs, without reference sites, that we had the opportunity to do that. But again, moving on with OBZ, now we can widen the field, and again, that just allows so much efficiency and to make the system much more elegant. This is I didn't quite know how to represent this, but in OBX, we didn't need an awful lot of support. We knew we needed a lot of support because it's the first system of that type in the world, and it's quite clear that we had to choose vendor partners that would be able to give that support, and we did. And it was, it was a challenge. Of course, it was a challenge to build that system, and we needed that plenty of support behind us to get those systems on the road. But move on 2 years, and I think that's to be read in conjunction with the amount of time it took to build OBX. We really started building it towards the end of 2015 and launched it in the summer of 16. There was a number of iterations, a number of design iterations, a number of things to overcome, which meant that the build cycle was very, very long. Spring to OBZ, and we built the truck in 12 weeks, which is a much more normal build schedule for an OB truck of that size. I mean, that's not including the coachwork, of course. The coachwork of the truck itself takes a good few months. But in terms of getting the integrators onto the truck, in terms of the time from putting that first cable in the truck to getting it on the road, 12 weeks is the sort of standard time that you'd expect from any OB truck. So there's no, it's not a longer process building an IP truck. It's now much more normalized. And that is a really stark difference between when we built OBX and OBZ is now how much more normalized it is because we've got the experience of running those trucks for a couple of years, because not only we've got the experience, but all the vendors have got more experience. It's now much more a traditional way of building a truck where you order a load of boxes, the boxes turn up, you plug them in, and great, off we go to our first job. So what about that naysayer? What's he thinking now? Well, happily, we can answer all of his questions and turning him to a happy naysayer. So that's good. Because with 2 years of experience, there's demonstrable interoperability. We've widened the user base, we've widened the experience, the skill in the field, which makes the design so much easier, and there's a much wider selection of IP products on the market. And as I say, all of that is making an IP system build much more normalized, much easier to achieve. You can build a really elegant and efficient system, and that is quite a stark difference from when we started this process 2 years ago with OBX. And this guy, I think, is, we're going to make him so happy we'll even put a little hat on him there. So it was a late night. It was a late night when I did that. So thank you. As I say, OBZ is in Hall 9. Please do come along and see us. We'd love to see you. We'd love to. We can answer questions down there, or maybe we have a few moments in hand. We can answer.
Yeah, so we do have a few minutes for questions. Anybody have anything that you'd like to get clarified, or any additional information from Daf while he's here? One question I had for you, Daf. Would you ever go back? Would you ever do a non-IP based truck?
No, is the short answer to that.
Yeah, I thought so. Why?
And we have, what was important to us. We didn't set out. We set out to build 4 trucks. We didn't set out to build 4 IP trucks. We went through the process of building that first truck, and we thought it would be wise to have a break, to consider what we'd done, to consider what the market was doing, and at every point, with every subsequent build, pragmatically and carefully analyze whether the next one should be IP. And every time the answer was an unequivocal yes, because it gives so much flexibility, all that scalability, that the fact that it's agnostic means that to build anything other than an IP truck now, in our opinion, means that in a couple of years you'd have to change it anyway, because there's a new high frame rate camera or something that demands a different way of transport.
High dynamic range,
yeah.
Wide color gamut, all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. What we'd like to see eventually is that high dynamic range with increased bit depth. Mm-hmm. But we'll be able to handle that when that comes along much more easily than with any other transport system, with any other infrastructure.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, go ahead. Here, hold on. Let me bring.
Thanks, Daf. Just a question about staffing your truck when you're operationally set it out on the field. Has it changed from your SDI trucks?
No, it hasn't. We still send, the engineering staff in the trucks. We always send an EIC for every department, and obviously the other staff to go with that. That hasn't changed. It's still the same number of people. The EICs have had a bit of IP training. They've got the IP experience, and what we're already seeing is that sort of sixth sense is starting to build, where you see an issue before it's actually happening, and that's building with experience and building with confidence. I think in time what we'd like to see is to take some staff away from the trucks, because what I think this technology enables is to kind of have a network operations center somewhere where you can visualize the whole fleet from one location without having to send a person to the truck and the hotels and the traveling that involves. I think that's a thing we'd like to do next. I think that would be a really cool thing to do. But in terms of, has it changed the balance of the people? No, not really.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.